Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and I'm back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. First, we have Queers for Palestine by Sleep Black 6899. And they said, I just think it's really funny that all these progressives who say they support LGBTQ rights are supporting Palestine right now. Like, if a white person says they're against LGBTQ equality, they're all, you're a nasty bigot. When it comes to Palestinians, they're all, please stop bombing children. It's just an interesting observation. And I said, the only standards most people have are double. Most Reddit leftists would probably have supported Hitler if he was a racial minority and the narrative emphasized how oppressed he was. I personally am more sympathetic to Palestine than Israel myself, but with that being said, I know that they are both very authoritarian countries. It's their job to solve things between themselves and not that of the U.S. Next we have, I cannot believe this is a real person from She Went Ahead on Twitter, and I posted that, and that was, she posted this person who, her name was Gretchen Boker Martin, who tweeted, smug liberal voice, so you might consider yourself an acceptable target in the event that Native Americans started fighting back. And they said, yeah, made mad at you fucking bar, right? Yeah, I hide in a hole like a rat to avoid it, but yes. And then they also tweeted, can pretty safely that Bin Laden, and I did not agree on much, but blowing up the World Trade Center is probably the most principled and defensible thing he ever did. And they also tweeted a picture of themselves when what was it? They said, I'm hot, and you should tell me I'm hot, and she looks a bit overweight, I would say. So I say to that, I said, I feel like the internet makes people like this seem a lot more numerous than they actually are. At least I sure hope so. Otherwise, I think, if these are the people that are increasingly being made more and more common by the internet, then that's not a good look for us as a species, I would say, especially because if they're the ones who are probably making all the rules, because they control the narrative, and that's not good, when they control the narrative, you're gonna have like all the we're gonna be living like in like North Korea, but worse, I would say. So next we have good tweet from Dave Smith, and I posted that, and he tweeted, I know this is next to impossible for some people will understand today, but several things can be true at the same time. Young left-wingers have been poisoned by victim ideology and see everything as oppressor versus oppressed. Osama bin Laden was an evil mass murderer. He also had some legitimate grievances about U.S. foreign policy that was horrific and inexcusable. They did generally victimize much of the media Muslim world. And I said, agreed, OBL was a loser terrorist, but like we saw stuff like the Unabomber's Manifesto, you can still find some good points he raised as well. So next we have Gaza's queer Palestinians fight to be remembered from thenation.com for International Silver 1. And yeah, I personally don't think they're as it's a crosspost from the Palestine subreddit, by the way, and it's a post from thenation.com. I think I said that, but I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, I don't think they're as common as a place like Reddit or TikTok would have you believe. But if they exist, they probably can find queer people in every country. So I think that's important to remember as well. Every country has people who might be, more LGBTQ than the rest of the country. I think access to the internet has definitely probably made that more so as people have become more and more sharing about progressive ideals and how they're easier to share more than ever, I would say. Then we have Locke's definition of liberty from 2000's Time of Charm, and that's a quote from theirs: liberty is to be free from restraint and violence from others. And I would agree with that, yeah. I think, you should be able to do whatever you want as long as you don't force anyone to do anything without their consent. Next we have the mods of the sub have begun banning dissent from Ruin My Circle Jerk, and that was a comment they made. I keep circling back to wondering how you get through life with such poor reading comprehension. Do you have a caretaker? And then the mod, Nikki Gushin, said, I don't care if you're uncensored, we're uncensored, this is a warning. You don't get to talk to people like the impunity, especially if your vitriol is triggering the auto mod. And I personally, would kind of disagree with that, I think, you shouldn't be mean to people. But I think if you market yourself as being uncensored, then being uncensored means you allow for all free speech, including mean free speech, and that's something that's important to remember as well. Then we have the plan in motion for the descent into autocracy from Wikipedia.com. That's an article from about Project 2025, and by Clorox, and they says with both sides, am I right? And I said, everyone is always going on about who's going to weaponize the government against who, but the real truth is that the government is weaponized against the people regardless of which knuckleheads or in which positions. Democrats don't have Project 2025, but they just have, they'll call it Agenda 2030 or Build Back Better instead, I would say. And that's important to remember. Everyone wants to can use the government to control you, it seems, except for some libertarians. But the thing is that everyone's like, oh, my side doesn't want to use the government to control you, but everyone, I think, kind of does, I would say. Everyone wants to rule the world, as the song goes. Then we have Dexter Wade, buried without his family's knowledge, had ID on him with his home address, lawyer says, from NBCNews.com, by Flimsy Out 5563, and I definitely would agree that's not good, so, yeah, I think he should have been buried with his family's knowledge, but that's just my thoughts on the issue. Then we have free speech absolutist. Elon Musk promises nuclear lawsuit as brands pull ads on X from Deadline.com by Whittling Dan. And I said, good. Fuck the bullies at Media Matters, ADL, SPLC, and the like. We need to support free speech, even for people we despise, I would say. Then we have NYC Public Libraries shutters Sunday service due to budget cuts from Pix11.com by Frosty Slawman. And that I would say that's not good, but it's important to remember that pretty much everything's online today, and but you do have to take some budget cuts sometimes. Like what Gospel said, everything is online today. It's crime bar to waste tax funds on such antiquated establishments, and I would kind of agree with that. I guess some people use libraries to access the internet, but other than that, people really aren't using libraries too much, I would say. So I think that's important to remember. Then we have now that mods on this subreddit are censoring people who are mean to them. Can we get some kind of consistent moderation policy apart from you made a mod big mad? That's from 2000 Time at Charm. That was a self post, and that's, yeah, I would say that's ultimately why I don't really like Reddit. It's ultimately subject to the people who are in positions of authority, the mods, and above them the admins, and that's why I think it's really impossible to have kind of a free speech platform on the internet currently, if how it's structured, because it's all based on all these social media platforms with their own moderation rules, and they're increasingly against free speech, or the advertisers will pull money. Like that's what Media Matters is trying to bully Twitter advertisers to move away. That's why I think we need to support free speech. But sadly, I increasingly don't think social media is the place to do that. But I'll fight until the bitter end to make sure we can support free speech as much as possible on social media, I would say. Then we have the horror of January 6th is that you were lied to by the establishment in order to rig the 2024 election and criminalize their political opponents, which is what they said Trump would do. Black is white, up is down, and your government is your enemy, from Jimmy Dore. And now he linked to the new January 6th tape that was released with the protesters walking in the hallway. And I said, I definitely think you could argue that there are a lot of parallels between January 6th and the Reichstag fire. Both were framed as an attack on the seat of government and used to demonize political opposition, while arguably paving the way for a different group of officers to rule. The Reichstag fire, that was when the communists burned down the Reichstag building, and then Hitler said, "Oh, you have to give all the power to me." I think you kind of see the same parallels here. I would say. So that's I don't really trust the GOP and Trump, but I don't really trust the Dems either. They're just trying to use this as a means to what's the word, centralize power among themselves. Then we have fentanyl-laced letters are being sent to election officials, so officials are stocking up on naloxone. From APnews.com by Willing Dan. And I think that could be another false flag, but I guess we'll have to see and see what it is, because they had the anthrax attacks, but they might have been a false flag as well, just justify stirring up panic. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. You don't know if this is a false flag or not. These days it seems like everything's a false flag, so that's important to remember as well. Then we have USA rice subsidies contribute to causing slavery in Haiti and West Africa. Explanation comments, and that's a post from Marys and Barracuda 496, a cross post from the anti-slavery meme subreddit, and it's a meme. It says, "Fuck rice subsidies. All my homies hate rice subsidies." And I would agree that's not good. But we live in a society that primarily is based on cheap labor, and that's important to remember. And that's why a lot of this cheap labor is probably going to happen even without rice subsidies, I would say, but I definitely think the rice subsidies would contribute to the issue, so that's my thoughts there. Next we have, what is the difference between the president versus your local zoning board? And I posted that and I said, each only have the authority that you are willing to give them. In a number of cases, your local government might be more powerful in your life than the national government, but most people seldom know or care who makes up their local government. Remember, just because someone is in a position of government authority doesn't mean anything as long as you don't want it to. And then I added, I don't know if I added anything else. I replied to Ninja Lover. They said their authority isn't dependent on your individual will. They have authority over you regardless of your personal beliefs. And I replied, that's a very status belief. When tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Just because someone else has monopoly on force only means as much as you let them use it. Enforcement of laws matters much more than the laws themselves, I would say. Next we have Ukraine War, the Russians snitching on colleagues and strangers from bbc.co.uk by FlimsyOut5563. And, that's just, I think, very much the nature of war. And, that's how war generally goes. I don't really care for either the Ukrainian or Russian governments, but I hope the people settle it amongst themselves and create peace as soon as possible. Then we have, study finds the majority of public school libraries are ideologically left biased, from Cato.org by Ruin My Circle Jerk. And they said, added, school choice supporters want to brainwash their kids by taking them out of public schools. And I guess I would agree with that. I think the big problem of education is inherently going to be biased, and that's why I think we just got to get rid of all the centralized education, I would say. Then we have, debating U.S. policy is hard. You have to research, think logically, work to persuade others. Calling everyone who disagrees with you racist, bigots, and anti-Semites is fun and easy, from Glenn Greenwald on Twitter. And I posted that and I said, that's the social media politics in a nutshell. It's a lot easier to name, call, and circle jerks than actually engage in discussion. And then we have, the worst thing about democracy is that it brainwashes people. Imagine actually believing that you had the power to vote out the ruling class, from Dave Smith on Twitter. And I posted that and I said, agreed, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. Democracy in the U.S. is going to be a lot more controlled as well than a less relevant country like China or Argentina. I heard they just elected a Libertarian president in Malay. Outside actors know it's a much bigger key when it comes to world politics in those countries. Even the Dems pretty much openly say, how much they said that an outside actor in Russia was the predominant reason that Trump won in 2016. So that's why I don't think, the U.S. government will probably have the Democrats and Republicans, the U.S. government probably collapsed, I'd say, but hopefully, we can get a Libertarian like Malay in there, but I'm not too optimistic about that. Then we have, interesting story about if Greta Thunberg lived in her dream world, a tweet from American Woman. I saw that because Tom Woods retweeted it. And, that's pretty much how, you can't use any petroleum products, so, as he says, so, you can't have, you have to live in, kind of a narco-permissive society. And I personally would prefer living in a narco-permissive society to what we have currently, because, it's more libertarian when it comes to like resource allocation. You have to gather your own resources and fend for yourself. I think that's a very libertarian construct. But in the I personally would prefer that to live in the impermanent side bit. I don't want to force others to live according to my standards, and that's why I really don't care for the climate change protesters and their bullying, forcing other people to live by their standards. And finally, we have Outsider Malay beats Massa in Argentina presidential runoff from Bloomberg.com. And I say good to see a libertarian win something. Of course, Reddit, the people here are probably going to can't practically tell the difference between Gary Johnson and Bill Weld and Adolf Hitler, so they probably think this guy's going to be Hitler as well. So that's what they believe. But it's good to see a libertarian actually win something. As I said, I definitely think it's because the elites don't care as much about Argentina and Argentina as they do like the country like the U.S. But I'm glad to see a libertarian actually get in power, and hopefully he gets rid of their national bank. And I think we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.